I first met Ethan Russo on a tour he led of his home garden, and right here on Vashon, and I was really amazed by all the beautiful fruit that he was growing, and that he was doing it all organically. It was incredible. Ethan Russo is a board-certified neurologist with a long-term interest in medicinal plants that has led to a second career focused on the therapeutic application of cannabis and other herbal treatments. He has busted sod since childhood and was the founder of BAFO, is that how you say it?
That's it.
The Blackfoot Organic Fruit and Flower Operation, one of the first state-certified organic farms in Montana. And he sold exotic produce at the Missoula Farmers Market for 2 years in the 1990s. He has lived on Vashon for 10 years and slowly turned his available quarter acre into more of a strictly organic edible landscape. Let's please give a warm welcome to Dr. Ethan Russo.
Thank you for coming. It's really great. I go all over the world giving talks about medicinal plants, but it's nice to just drive a little bit up the road and be able to speak to fellow Vashon people. So anyway, this is the introductory slide, and you'll see a picture of a book there by Michael Phillips, Holistic Orchard. Everything that we're talking about today is derived from that book. As I was reading, I think it's a fantastic book, and there's tremendous detail in there. The only criticism of it I have is that for the person who just wants to know how to do it, it's a little bit hard to pick out. If you buy the book, you may find yourself making notes for how you'd like to do it later. We've tried to help with that by distilling some of the key ingredients of the spray and the proportions that are needed in the handout that you receive. If you have questions about any of this, my email is up there, pretty easy. My name, Ethan Russo at Comcast.net, and I'd be happy to hear from you. I will get back to you. Sometimes there's a little delay. For instance, I'm flying to Nova Scotia tomorrow and Newfoundland on Friday for other talks, not the same one. Anyway, next please. So yes, that is a picture of me by Alice Beach Winters, who to me was just this crabby old lady, but I found out later that she was in her youth quite an active leftist in New England politics. But I guess I had an affinity for fruit even then. Next, please. So, key questions that people have: why do you go to the trouble of growing organically? Well, one answer is because it's fun. Another is because we think it's important, and there are arguments from people all over the world about whether nutritionally it's better to grow organically. It is. And then there's the whole environmental aspect that you heard a little bit about already. It was critically important to me that I do things organically, and I've heard for decades from people that it's impossible to grow good fruit without synthetic pesticides, which is not true at all. And for years I was asking everyone, do you know of a preventive organic spray program that you can just do proactively to be able to grow good fruit? And everyone said, no, that's a nice idea, but I don't know of any. And then about 6 years ago, Michael Phillips came out with this book, and it was exactly what the proverbial doctor ordered, or even the non-doctor. So here are the reasons. It's definitely safer, it's ecologically sound, you're working with rather than against nature. The idea of the spray program that we're going to do, it's going to be okay for the good bugs and repel the bad bugs, but not necessarily kill anything. Just keep things in proper balance. It's a sustainable approach. And again, there is positive evidence of nutritional benefits. Sometimes bigger fruit clearly more of these secondary metabolites, things like bioflavonoids that help prevent aging and degenerative diseases. And then it's very satisfying. I mean, how many people before this could say, my fruit is 100% organic and I actually get some? So, yeah, I mean, that's important. Next, please. Did we miss one? Can we go back one?
I'm back.
There we go. Okay, so this is the book. On Amazon, it's discounted from the regular price. I was happy to pay the full price when it first came out. He has a website that's really good, and there's a blog that goes along with it. And here's the book in the back.
Can I pass this
Like
on?
me, sometimes he takes a while to answer his emails, but when I've had questions that weren't handled in the book, like why won't my quince tree fruit, he will at least give it a try. But remember, you have resources here too. If you remember the Fruit Club, take a picture of your diseased or damaged tree or bush and send it around and you'll get opinions. Next one, please. Part of organic growing is realizing how fruit grows in the wild. Most of the fruit trees that we have are designed to grow at the forest edge. And it's an environment where there's lots of stuff that falls off, leaves and twigs. But I'm not a cosmetic gardener. If you took the tour of my place, you would have seen that it doesn't necessarily look great, but the results are really good. So a lot of that stuff that we cosmetically rake away is actually good for the plant. Will break down and provide nutrition and harbor good organisms that need to be there. So you can promote this by using what are called ramial wood chips. So these are the thin 2-inch or less branches from hardwoods. And you can chip these, so if you get this chipper, you're going to spend a lot of time feeding them in one by one. It might be better to have a bigger wood chipper if you have a bigger property. Next, please. And this is what they look like. Ideally, they're different shapes. And this is like solid nutrition for the trees and can be spread just like mulch. And you'll be amazed. Next, please, just a close-up. You'll be amazed how quickly this gets incorporated into the soil. Next, please. Primarily, though, we're going to be talking about this preventive organic spray program that Michael Phillips developed. So what's it all about? Well, again, the idea is a general spray that's a tonic for the plants, providing things it needs and keeping things in ecological balance. The idea is to improve fruit growth, the vigor, and the nutrients that they need. When properly done, and my spraying, he recommends every 7 to 14 days throughout the season. The season starts early here. I usually start in late February and go through about now, into September. There might be one spray late in the season to help break down some of the leaves and other stuff that's fallen off the trees. But what this will do is markedly reduce predation by bad bugs. The neem in the spray that we're going to talk about has an anti-feed-in property. It sort of tastes bad for the bugs and they'll go somewhere else that doesn't have this. But it's not harmful to pollinators. I've got plenty of mason bees and other pollinators in the garden, provided we don't have a spring like this one. So if you didn't have a great yield, welcome to the club that we don't want to be in. A lot of the components of the spray are antifungal, and goodness knows, in our environment, that's our biggest problem. Things like peach leaf curl and black spot on roses are really an issue in this locality. Despite the fact that it reduces those pathogenic disease-forming fungi, it improves the mycorrhizal growth in the soil. Mycorrhizae are fungi that grow around the roots, and it's a symbiotic relationship. Both get something out of it. The fungi have a place to grow, and it helps provide nutrients to the tree itself through the roots. Additionally, this spray will reduce both bacterial and viral diseases. Next, please. So the real base to this is pure organic neem oil. Now, there's tons of neem oil on the market. I use a brand called Ahimsa, and I'm going to pass this around. I'm going to ask you to be really careful. This is like melted butter here. It's the consistency of butter. It must have been warmed up. Because normally it'll be more green and look like butter that's been on the counter for a few minutes. This is expensive, but if you buy it in bulk, you can store it in the refrigerator for long periods of time. And what I do is I buy little bottles like this and measure out the 75 milliliters, that's 5 tablespoons, in each one. I keep them in the fridge, and then when I'm ready to spray, I just grab one and set it out on the counter and then on the stove to melt the stuff. So if we look going from left to right, we've got the neem oil. This is what it looks like in the fridge. When it's warmed up, it looks like that in the middle. And then you need a soap to emulsify it. Break it up into the little tiny droplets so it'll spread through the spray and not float on top. And this has got to be done warm. People ask me if you can store the spray. The answer is no, you cannot. It's got to be done on the spot. Next, please. Second component is hydrolyzed fish fertilizer. Now, there's, again, this is not fish emulsion. That's just fish that are ground up. This is different. This is broken down a little bit with enzymes. And it's much more bioavailable to the plant. It also doesn't smell as bad. So this is a distinct product as compared to fish emulsion that you might be more familiar with. Yes?
What is the brand?
That's Neptune. And on our, if you got the handout, all this stuff should be on there, including the prices. We're trying to get it so the country store will carry all this stuff, and you don't even have to be doing a bunch of mail order. But I usually buy gallons of each of these things and store them. They've got good shelf life, so it's not an issue. Next, please.
I have a question about those enzymes you're referring to. Are those available if you want to make your own recipe?
I think that you could. I doubt it's going to be worth the time.
Okay.
We'll have time for questions at the end, so why don't we go through and then I'll be happy to answer outstanding issues. So the next one is liquid kelp, and this is also hydrolyzed. Now, we do have kelp on the beach. This is made from good stuff in non-polluted areas. The key thing here is this has got hormonal effects, growth factors, also a lot of trace minerals. And we're primarily using these as foliar. So foliar feeding means that you're spraying on the leaves, but also some on the ground. Next, please. The next ingredient are beneficial microbes. This is the brand that I've used. You can do this 3 different ways. This one comes pre-mixed. You can magnify it because this is a little bit pricey, but you can mix this and mix it with a little bit of molasses, and you let it ferment. Again, because this has got a combination of bacteria and fungi in it. You let it ferment for a while until it gets to the right pH, and then you can increase the yield 20-fold. So you can have this, you can brew this, you can buy it just pre-mixed that can't be extended, or for people that want to make compost tea, they can do that. That's again a little bit more labor intensive. That's a way you end up with this liquid, and you've got to aerate it for a few days. And, it really is very good for plants and can be used as a fertilizer. But because I travel a lot, it's better if I can just make stuff on the spot. Next, this is blackstrap molasses. Make sure it's organic. You don't want it sulfured because that's going to kill the good bugs that you've got in your mix. This is in the mix because it nourishes the beneficial microbes. So when you spray it, they've got something to grow on for a bit. And next, please. Finally, a spreader sticker. There are various of these. This one's called Thermix 70. This is the only one I found that is listed as organic. So there are various spreader stickers on the market, but you might have to get this one or look to see if there are others that have come on the market that are really organic. Next, please. So I realize you're not going to be able to read this too well, but you don't have to because we provided this to you. But this is what we call orchard spray rates, and it's taken from Michael's book. It's just he didn't have a table like this, and we've scaled this all the way from like doing a quart or a pint at once, all the way up to 100 gallons. He's got a relatively bigger operation in extreme northern New Hampshire, and he uses a 100-gallon sprayer on a tractor. So if you have that, that's great. We've got the directions for mixing it up that way. What I use is a little different, as we'll see next. So this is the neem again. This is a little, used to be a yogurt maker. This is passed by the wayside. I did have it for almost 40 years. But it shows you the transition from the green, more solid neem to what it looks like when it's heated up. The heating is not that much, 105 degrees Fahrenheit or so. You don't want to do anything over 120 degrees Fahrenheit or 50 degrees Celsius because that'll kill the good bugs. Next, please. So, it's absolutely necessary that you have clean water for this. Now, on Vashon, you do that one of two ways. Either with good filtered water, or because if you're on District 19 water, it's chlorinated. You should set your water out overnight so that it can outgas the chlorine. Again, otherwise it's going to kill the good bugs. Okay, so that's very important. You could use distilled water, but it's going to be way, way too expensive. You know, I've got a water filter in the kitchen, and I've had no problem with it. So I heat up a bunch of water to something less than 50 degrees Celsius because you want that warm to keep the neem suspended. That's very important and the reason that you can't store it. Next, please. This is about the effect of microbes. And so if you do buy the ProBio, for example, and want to make your own, this is what it's got in it. Lactobacilli and bifidobacteria. These are things that you find in yogurt. They're on vegetables. If you do lactofermentation of vegetables, you've got the same kinds of bugs. So a lot of these you could drink, but I'm not recommending that. That's not what it's for. You want your plants to drink it. And it's got, again, these yeasts. There are other beneficial bacteria, as you see there. We won't go through the names. And to make this brew, what you do is you use 3/4 of a cup of the beneficial microbes, 1/4 cup of blackstrap, a gallon, fill the gallon jug up. You keep it at 90 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit until the pH is 3.8 or less. And that's about a week's worth. And then it'll store for several weeks at room temperature, and you've got 20 times more for the same price. So like anything else, there's some investment of time and money. Next, please. This pH paper is readily accessible. You can get it from Raintree, or maybe the local stores have it too. You just dip the strip in, and when it's the same color as the 3.8, you're there. So not hard. A little bit of kitchen chemistry. Next, please. And as I mentioned, you can get the premix, this bioad, and it's the same bugs. It's just the difference is this one won't multiply.
This one what?
Will not multiply.
Oh.
You've got to just use it as is. Okay? Next. Now, this next part is only for the hardcore among you. Michael Phillips is into doing a lot of herbal teas as an additional supplement to his plants. And this is usually a once-a-year proposition. And these are things you can find readily on Vashon. When I first did it, I had to go to an herbally interested friend's house and get comfrey. But I knew that we had horsetail down by Tramp Harbor. I got those, and there are nettles everywhere. If you can't find nettles on the side, yeah, so they're there. But the first one is comfrey. What I'm going to recommend, comfrey is a really interesting plant. It is invasive though. However, the company that used to be called Horizon Herbs, now called Strictly Medicinal, sells a Russian hybrid comfrey. And it's, in terms of its constituents, the good stuff in it, it's exactly the same, but it'll just grow abundantly every year, but it won't spread. Okay? So I really recommend that. And I've got that scattered through the garden. What this does, among other things, is aerates the soil, and it really recruits calcium from deep in the ground. But in the spring, you can cut some of this down, you cover it with hot water, and you brew it for a week. What this is going to do is serve as another tonic for the plant. It produces trace minerals. It also has antifungal properties. It's very good to add to the mix. The next one, horsetail. Basically, if you've got an area of standing water, or there's a creek nearby, there's apt to be horsetails. They're readily identifiable. What this does, it's very strong in silica. Silica is what's in sand, but this is in a form where you can spray it on the plant, and it really toughens up the plant and helps prevent predation from bugs that would like to suck that plant dry. So that's the main ingredient there. The next one is the nettle tea. Now, warning, you've got to be hardcore to do this, because once this stuff ferments, it's pretty rank. It can be stored at ambient temperature, outside temperature, as long as it's out of the sun. And I just use it throughout the season. Basically, what I've done here is I fill up 5-gallon buckets, food grade, that you can get at one of the hardware stores. As I said, dump the hot water on it. Again, that should be chlorine-free or filtered. And let it sit for a week, and then you can store it. I do a quart of each added to the mix throughout the season. Next, please. You don't need to go to this step, but you can put airlocks on them, and they look pretty good until they start growing fungi in them, which looks bad, and you wonder why you'd be spraying this on your plant. But again, it's good fungi rather than bad fungi. Okay, next. This is what the mix looks like all together. Sort of muddy, but I think you'll appreciate that you don't see globs of oil on top. It's actually well mixed, particularly if you've got that water temperature right. you'll just see tiny droplets of neem throughout. And the bottom will look just like the top. That's done right. Next, please. This is just some notes about things. Let's see what we need to mention. As I had pointed out, he recommends every 1 to 2 weeks throughout the season. I've done it every 2 weeks. I can't manage once a week. You drop the fish, which is a fertilizer, of course, with the nitrogen component. You drop that about the beginning of June. You do the various herbal teas from the time that when the nettle flowers, that's the time to make it. That's the time to start doing it. And you do that through the beginning of September. So I'm done with that part. The neem oil should be refrigerated, particularly if you're going to buy it in bulk. If you leave it out and you warm it to get it out of the bottle, you can't do that forever. What I'd really recommend is get an amount that you think is reasonable. I do gallons, which lasts me a couple of seasons. I pour out 75 milliliters in these little jars. They go in the fridge too. And I just take one out and I'm ready to work. Once again, the fish and kelp should be hydrolyzed. And the affected microbes you can use as is, or you can multiply them, or you can make your own compost tea. The blackstrap, keep in mind, if you're not used to working with molasses, it's very tarry stuff. That's got to be warmed up too in the water to get it to mix. Otherwise, it's going to glob up in the bottom of your bucket. If you're worried about how all this smells, what I'd like to say is that the complete mix with the fish and the neem smells like a Thai restaurant in full production. I like that. Once you drop the fish, it just smells a little bit nutty. There's really nothing bad about it at all. Now the herbal teas are something else. They get pretty rank due to the development of butyric acid. Butyric acid is harmless, but it smells like vomit. So if you're sensitive, you might want to get help with that or forget about the teas. Next slide. And we're not going to go through this in detail. This is on your handout, but basically these are sources for the various components. I don't get a kickback from any of these. What I did was look at the pictures really carefully in Michael's book, and my thinking was, well, he uses this brand, I'm going to try and do that, but there are others. I really would be careful. However, again, you don't want fish emulsion, you want hydrolyzed fish. And you need, there are only a few of the neem oils that are really organic and are whole nut that are made the way the ahimsa is. I guarantee you don't want to go to the trouble of doing this with the raw ingredients. Another thing that comes up is how much trouble is this really? Well, how important is your fruit to you? I can tell you that I've seen a lot of fruit operations on the island, and there's a lot of mummyberry around. And before I was doing this, we inherited some blueberry bushes, and then I added to them. We really weren't getting any. Between the birds and the mummyberry, there was almost no production, but as you'll see, we're doing really well now with no mummyberry, and the reason is because of this program. With the right setup, I can get this down to where I'm doing an hour every 2 weeks. That's soup to nuts. From the time I say, okay, I'm going to spray until I'm done and things are setting out to air out is an hour. Okay, so an hour every 2 weeks to me is a good investment. I think well worthwhile. There is some initial outlay for this stuff. Some of the ingredients are pricey, but to me, again, well worthwhile. Next, please. In terms of other equipment, I use a backpack sprayer. I can't tell you how many trees I've got that I'm spraying. It's something like 12 or 14 and a bunch of berries. This is all on a 1/4 acre. So I can do the whole thing, all the berries and roses and fruit trees that I want to spray with 1 4-gallon application every 2 weeks. I started out with this, the Solo. I figured, a German sprayer, it should be really reliable, but I've gone through one a season. This is a manual one where you're spraying with the right hand and you're pumping all the time with the left. And I'm afraid that when these go, that's it. They can be serviced, but the service is like 40 bucks an hour, and you can't take one of these apart and put it back together in less than a couple of hours. So when it goes bad, unless you've got abundant time on your hands, it's not worth the trouble. So I went through 2 of these and another similar manual brand before I got wise. If you do get this, you do want to spring for the better shoulder pads and the waist band. If you're like me, of a certain age, and have a bad back, this weighs 40 pounds when it's full. And you want to distribute that weight. I can tell you, I've never hurt my back doing this. I've hurt my back plenty other ways. And you probably want to get one of these pads and stick it on there, and again, a little bit more investment. Next, please. I'm sort of a purist. A couple of months ago, I got an automatic car for the first time in my life, and it wasn't because I wanted that. It's because manual cars they really don't exist in this country anymore if you're getting something new. And I felt the same way about the sprayer. If you could do it manually, that's what I thought you should do. But I was wrong because it breaks down. So I decided, okay, I'm going to spend the extra 20 bucks or whatever it is, and I'm going to get an electric sprayer. And this is actually pretty neat. It's a lithium battery, and all of a sudden, you're not doing this all the time. It also is much steadier and much faster. And because there's not the wear and tear, I think it's going to last a lot longer. So it costs a little more, but boy, the time I actually am spraying is half as much. And the cleanup's much easier too, because you can just put some warm water in there and let it rip. So this is the new one I've been using, and so far I'm really happy. Yeah, time's important. So, next please. Yeah, so there is a true story behind this. I was out there one morning and saw one of the neighbors looking at me and getting really worried. And so I took off the mask and I said, "Don't worry, it's all organic." And I'm not sure she was appeased, but I ran into my realtor a few days later, and she said, "Well, which house was it?" And I said, "Oh, the one down the hill." And she said, "Oh, they're just renters." I guess I wasn't supposed to worry. But this is the way that I do it. And the real reason is, this stuff's absolutely safe. As I pointed out, you could drink it. God knows why you'd want to. But the fact is, you don't need to be getting this on your clothes. It does smell when the fish is in it. And so I found after the first couple of sprays that, gee, well, now I gotta wash these clothes and take a second shower. Again, more time. So the Tyvek suit costs nothing. It's really cheap. Again, you can get a bunch of these. And so I just cover up, and when I'm done, I take the stuff off, and my clothes are fine. So that's the way to do it. So yeah, you don't need to breathe the fumes. I don't think that those I wouldn't recommend it. My wife took that picture. Next. So, what does all this do? Well, starting in the winter, it really provides a good wake-up for the plant, get things started. And I think if you do this, you'll really notice that you had bud break, and then you spray, and then all of a sudden, things go wild. Yeah, you know, between the rain and getting a little sun in March, that's a factor, but boy, it's different once you start spraying. With the apples, I noticed that they were much larger, the flavor was better. I have not had any codling moth or apple maggot. I should mention that the year before I started this, I tried the little net things where you go around all the little fruit and put these baggies on them. I hated that job. I spent like 5 hours doing it, it didn't work, and I was really unhappy, and I would never do that kind of thing again. So I would much rather spend an hour every 2 weeks doing this. And it's, the bags don't do anything except supposedly keep the bugs out. With the blueberries, I mentioned already, totally eliminated the mummyberry, and it just seemed to be rampant everywhere else, and there was a marked increase in yield. With the pears, I have had, if you spray on a day where there's bright sun, which is going to be any time in July and August here, you have a chance that to get a photosensitivity reaction on pear trees, I find. Some of the leaves will get black spots, and it won't kill it, and it'll come back. Roses, not usually thought of as a fruit, but we had a terrible black leaf spot. And I've got that. It's not eradicated, it's still there, but it's controlled, and we've got really good roses now, so I do spray those. The raspberries, better size and yield. Strawberries, bigger, better tasting. Plant I highly recommend to see pictures of in a few minutes is an Illinois everbearing mulberry. Who's tried mulberries? Said, boy, Shango has. Yeah, this is a great fruit. Not well known to most modern Americans, but grows beautifully here. You don't want to grow it next to a walkway because it stains, but lovely fruit, makes an incredible pie, wonderful for fresh eating, and really likes to spray. I now have persimmons, the sage or persimmon you'll see coming up. Also blue crown passion flower, I've gotten fruit a couple of times, and really nice flowers. So let's show some evidence. Next, please. This is the Illinois mulberry. I can't grow to be 35 feet, but you can prune it all you want, and just keep growing. So I cut it down.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What kind of mulberry?
Illinois everbearing.
Okay, thank you.
Raintree has it, I try and keep it so that I can reach the fruit. You know, you don't want to be picking a small fruit from a water. I admire people who grow sweet cherries, but no, I try to keep it within reach. Next, please. So there's an immature mulberry on the right and mature one on the left. Next, please. And this is what they look like. You want to try and pick them when they're all black, but the birds will be vying for them. They really like these. I found that the aluminum mylar steer tape works pretty well. Our dog also likes these. So I decided that I'll just share with the birds, and usually the robins love these, and they'll pick them up off the ground. So the dog hasn't had a good year for mulberries. Next. So we've got mulberries in the colander, and this was my best year on the apricots. This year I only got, I think they're really pretty, but I only got 3 this year. But did anybody get any? Apricots? Wow, you got one, okay. Next. I've got one apple tree left, and it's Cortland. It seems to be a biennial bearer. It's not necessarily supposed to be, but I end up bringing bags of them to the athletic club because it's more than we can eat. But you'll see next in the close-up. Next. So, looks clean. I don't see any bugs because of the spray. So.
And no scab? No scab this year?
No. This year, a little. I mean, but you know, it's really not much at all. Next, please. I got 2 wheelbarrows like that off this one small tree.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's laden. Next. That's one of the passiflora, passion flowers. Pretty good for something that's supposed to be a tropical plant from Brazil. So, next. The pears. And next, please. There's the quince. I'm pleased to say, after being frustrated with this tree for several years, I've got about 10 this year. For some reason, it wants to just grow the ones on the top. So I'll probably need a ladder for those. Next. Blueberries. In the best year, I can get a pint every couple of days. They're really pretty clean. This next is what they look like in the fall. So if you didn't have other reasons to grow blueberries, they're really pretty a few weeks from now. Next, which is the blossoming pears. And next, blossoming apple, the Cortland again. And next, the quince. And the next one. This one's a native plant. The buffalo currants or grapes liratum. And these are nice. The flowers are pretty. It smells like cloves. I didn't really get a lot of fruit this year, but normally there's a lot. They're about this size. They're black. Very tasty berry. It's real different than black currants, European black currants, which have sort of a weird aftertaste. Most Americans don't like them. Next, please. Again, boy, I normally have a tremendous amount of sour cherries, but this year was a bust. The tree was just covered with blossoms, but fruit set was minimal just because of the weather. And the last slide. The sage arrow I've got because it's supposed to be one of the only oriental persimmons that will ripen in this climate. But this is the slowest growing thing I've ever had. And they warn you that if you get it from Rain Tree. The first year I set it out, it leafed out about a week before it froze. It came back the next year, barely grew, and slowly, it's gotten to the point where it's now about 15 feet high, and in the 7th season, I got fruit. Last year there were about 100. I couldn't find my pictures. They're probably on my old phone, but it's really a beautiful tree in all seasons. It's lovely green. It's got these peculiar looking blossoms and end up with fruit that's yellow-orange like this. A lot of people may not be familiar with persimmons, but this will be ready somewhere after Thanksgiving. So it's sort of the capper to the season, and the fruit will be ready after the leaves have already fallen off. So you've got these yellow-orange fruit on a bare tree. It's really pretty striking. Anyway, that's the run-through. And as I said, I'd be happy to answer questions.
I have a couple. One, when using the silica,
Do you find it's better for the plants if it's a foliar spray or a soil mulch?
Well, all of this stuff can be sprayed around the base of the trees. So, you know, they do that, particularly early in the season. I think it's going to help either way. But Michael in the book mentions that, you know, both areas of that, it goes on the branches and trunks too. Because it's going to have an advantage to the tree or the berry, wherever you spray it. Again, what we're doing is beefing it up, helping with its natural protections and providing some of the stuff that, you know, the good bugs and fungi that may not be in full supply on a given year. I mean, you know, we've got a challenging climate here. We've gone from the rainiest winter and spring on record to one of the driest summers. Well, I should point out too, with a mulch, I've got an 8-inch layer of mulch. I watered maybe 3 times this year. So I take a Darwinian approach to this whole thing. I want those trees to have deep roots, get what they need in terms of nutrition and water. And I'm not supplying water unless I really think they need it. That's worked out pretty well.
Just use wood chips for mulch.
Yeah, and the radial wood chips are the best, but you've got to have, again, less than 2-inch diameter, and it's a good bit of labor to chip these. Otherwise, you want to use hardwoods. Alder would be the best around here. Yeah, you don't want cedar. Cedar's got a bunch of growth inhibitors in it. So yeah, hardwood chips are going to be the best. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
So, well water is good for, I mean, it's.
Yeah, if you have it tested, you mean, if it doesn't have anything bad in it, it's going to kill the bugs, then I'd say sure.
I think it's going to be tested for wildlife.
So, when I pick raspberries, I don't wash them, I just eat them. So if you've been spraying with this stuff, can you just eat the raspberries? Are they gonna taste weird, or what's the deal?
Yeah, well, I've experimented a lot. I've eaten from the same tree I sprayed in the morning. Yeah, as I mentioned, there's nothing toxic in here. Using 1 or 2 teaspoons of the Bronner soap for 4 gallons. I've never tasted anything weird. Absolutely the next day, but I have eaten from the tree the same day, and I am like you, I eat straight from the tree. Things like raspberries, how do you wash them and then dry them?
What about apples? Do you wash the apples?
Yeah, I do there. But, you know, they're later in the season and there's probably dust and other stuff on them, so I definitely wash them. And, you know, it also helped them last longer. It's very different than a berry. I think berries were for foraging. You eat them straight, you know. More ends up in my stomach than in the tail generally, so. Yes?
What is a mummyberry?
Mummyberry is a fungal disease of blueberries, and it's ugly and makes it inedible. It really knocks down the yield, and you know, it's a good thing to prevent. It's rampant around here.
So what does it look like?
It's shriveled up, and in its worst state, you see white fungal-like stuff. You're back.
A question about, in the springtime with the spraying, do you have to be careful about bloom time? I mean, could the trees be in full bloom and still spray, or?
I've done it in every stage. You know, different trees are going to be at different stages. Michael addresses that in the book and says you might want to work around full bloom. But the fact is, I've never had any problem with pollination here unless it was due to weather. The spray doesn't do anything about a cold, rainy spring, okay? But I've really watched this. I've sprayed, I've gone out the same day and seen plenty of pollinators working on the same stuff that got sprayed a few hours before. So clearly it's not thwarting them from their assigned duties. So it's a great question. Sorry.
I've got a question about your recipe. Like on the 4 gallon line here, do you start with 4 gallons of water and then add these other things to it? Or
No. See, how I do it is something along the lines of the following. I heat up the water, I put in the molasses and get that mixed in. The neem goes in. This is so the water is warmed already. I'm going to move so our recording still has me in frame. So the neem goes in while it's still warm. That's already been mixed with the broader soap so that it emulsifies. Then I run downstairs, I put in the fish, I put in the microbes, I put in the kelp, and the spreader sticker. That goes in the sprayer. Then I add the herbal teas if I'm using them, and then I fill up the rest with more warm water. And then you go straight to work. You don't let it sit because you want to keep things warm. Keep in mind, when it comes out of the sprayer, it's going to cool down immediately. You're not going to kill anything that way. What you don't want to do is have the water too hot so that you're killing your beneficial microbes. No, you don't mix it all. I just add the water to get the sprayer full.
How much water? I'm missing something. Where's the, how
It's a
much?
4 gallon sprayer.
Yeah.
So you use the ingredients as it's listed in the table,
Right.
and then you fill it the rest of the way.
Oh, and then, yeah, okay. Thank you, sorry.
How much what?
I didn't get it.
On the tea, I use a quart of each. So a quart of comfrey, nettle, and horsetail. Shango.
How do you determine how much to spray any particular plant? You know, you've got small blueberry plants, you've got big trees. You probably can't overdose them, but how do you make sure you get them enough?
It's a good question. Particularly with the electric sprayer, it comes out nicely and evenly. I do it so that it looks like I'm getting some on each leaf and fruit, and on the stems and a little bit on the ground. As you said, you can't have too much. Occasionally I've had a plant where I really wanted to have a lot of, make sure it's really wet and then move along. And I'm doing this pretty quickly. Some of the trees are bigger and I'm not getting the tops, but the plant will still benefit in some respect. I think there's a lot of leeway on this. It's glad to have any help that you can give, and clearly this does help, so I wouldn't worry too much. So,
just a curious question, what is neem oil?
neem is a nut from India, and so it's got, in terms of ingredients, it's got a lot of what are called triterpenoids. So these are like essential oils, but they're thicker, more oily, more solid at room temperature. Good thing about the book is that if you really want to dig in, he's got a lot of explanation for the reasons behind this. Also, you can dig out the references that are in the back of the book, and you can get it down to a very scientific level if you want. But that's imported. Maybe it grows in Florida, but probably not right now.
Do you have a fertilizer program in addition to the spray, or is this already?
Great question. I mulch, I do this, and that's it. The exception is I use an organic fertilizer in the spring and fall just for the blueberries. Because, they're not native here. It's a special mix, again, from Rain Tree. It's
Acid.
yeah, it's for acid plants. Additionally, it's got mycorrhizal organisms in them that should help with the growth. But that said, I haven't provided compost or nitrogen in any form, anything over the last 7 seasons, nothing. And things grow like crazy. I don't think it needs anything.
So do you spray on rainy days? Could it be raining when you're spraying?
Yeah, good question. You don't want to spray unless you've got like 4 hours for things to set. Now, this year wasn't a problem. Some years it's really a problem, particularly in the spring. Getting it right. Again, say it's going to be sunny, you probably want to go out early and get it on. As I mentioned, if it's bright sun in the afternoon, it's possible you get some photosensitivity reactions. A lot of this would be because they're going to be droplets on the plant. That acts like a magnifying glass to the sunlight that can burn the leaves. So it's not necessarily chemical, it's just, this magnification of the sun.
So you can't do hydrolyzed it. I mean, we have to do hydrolyzed it. What does hydrolyzed mean?
It means that enzymes are breaking it down to some extent. So it's not a big protein, it's smaller.
So it's like fermenting?
Yeah, it would be considered like a fermentation. So it's treated with enzymes. What it means is that the plant can get benefit of the nitrogen or other nutrients really quickly because it doesn't have to break them down. And again, the benefit of not smelling as bad. I'm not going to tell you it's great, but it's a lot better than fish emulsion, which is repulsive.
Would wood shavings or sawdust, we have an excess of that at our house, would that work or would that be too fine?
The sawdust clumps up quite a bit, and it can absorb enough water on the top that you don't get enough below it. So it's better to have chips. And again, in the book, it goes into detail about the size of things. And you don't want conifer sawdust. It should be from hardwoods, preferably. Yeah.
So is that, I think of
Yeah,
nitrogen
some.
carbon balances, is that too much carbon to be putting on a tree?
Yeah, maybe. And if you have sawdust, it's going to end up it'll recruit nitrogen on its own and may rob the plant of stuff that would be down there. With the chips, they're going to last a lot longer, and so you're not going to, yeah. So if you can use some sawdust, I just want to have that exclusively. In the back.
Could you repeat your email address?
Sure. Ethan Russo at Comcast.net. Maybe on the handout too.
Tea on the compost pile?
Pretty sure. I did. Composting is a great idea. I've never been very good at it, mainly because I'm negligent. Theoretically it should be turned all the time. I go down there to pick fruit. I don't go down there to turn the compost pile. And I've tried vermicompost, and I think it's great. I admire people that have the discipline to do it. It's not worked out terrifically for me. Plus, as I said, I'm not sure I need it. Between the spray and the thick layer of mulch, it seemed to take care of everything. I always wondered about this. In the wild, there are fruit trees that produce fruit. They didn't have somebody dumping cow manure on them all the time. So,
Plus there's a cow.
sure, so I think that this kind of growing technique more resembles what should be occurring naturally. That's my spin on it. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but I just haven't. I'll point out that the soil at my place was extremely well balanced when I bought it. We didn't buy the house until the soil test came back. But after living in Montana for 24 years with horrendous conditions in the near Arctic, it's paradise here in comparison.
You haven't talked about disease-resistant varieties, which I think is a great foundation.
Yeah, sure, you bet. I did in relation to the peach leaf curl.
Yeah.
With the others, I mainly made my selections based on what's going to work here.
Yeah.
You can get that information from Dr. Bob, or there's a lot of information in the Rain Tree catalog or One Green World. But things are changing. It may not be that long before we're growing pomegranates here.
I just want to put in a pitch for Liberty apples, which are extra nutritious, no apple scab, and they're really resistant to predation as well. Taste great. It's prolific every year.
I have one that, this is its second year, and it's gorgeous, and it's full of fruit.
Yeah, and no apple scab.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Other questions?
So if you mix up the spray and you're like a typical American, would it be better to instead of putting in 1 teaspoon, say you want to put in like a quart or whatever, you know what I mean? Like what is it an optimum, the spray as those ingredients are added in there? And if you added more neem oil, would it make it better?
The only time that you do a double dose of neem in the winter and last spray in the fall to help break things down. No, I'm sorry, just in the winter. You do double the fish in the fall to help break down the residual leaves and stuff. Other than that, I don't see the need. If you have too much neem, you stand a chance of it cooling down and gumming up your sprayer. Again, I've got a system that's worked for me, and I don't play with it that much at all. I really don't. I go with the standard recommendations. But, you could experiment.
Do you have to replenish your wood chips like annually, your 8 inches?
No, I haven't. The 8 inches has lasted, I think I'm in my 3rd season. They weren't very small, but I think you can dig down, see what's going on in the soil. Again, I haven't had to water, so I think it's still working. I think more is better. When I first moved here, we had a groundsman where I put mulch down in various areas. He'd come and work, and then the mulch would disappear. We had a huge argument about it. He almost got fired that day. It's not working for me now. Yeah, we've got a crew that leaves the mulch. So
You just threw it away?
Yeah. He tried to convince me that mulch was bad, also that you couldn't do all this organically, so anyway.
We seem to lose fruit to raccoons fairly regularly. An
What's the
angry
question?
dog.
Raccoons.
Raccoons. An angry dog helps. Also, you can try an 8-foot fence. Yeah, an electric fence would work. Do you live in Ellisport by chance?
Well, near there.
Yeah, well, there's a guy who feeds the raccoons that are they don't need any encouragement. So, and No, I'm serious about the dog because my wife didn't move for 5 months when I was here, and I had deer in the yard regularly eating my newly planted trees. That stopped when the dogs arrived, so.
So I was just looking in the book about the mulberry business and talked about the little spores that appear on the ground, and I didn't see that this year. I've never seen it before.
Sure.
So,
Well, there are a couple other things you can do about mulberry is you want to disturb the material around the tree, I'm sorry, around the bush, and you want to replenish pine needles preferably each season. That'll help, but the spray does a great job on the mulberry.
so if I dug that stuff up and took it away from
What you have to do is rake around. My understanding is the spores land, and it's described in the book what you can do. But the spray really does help. I'll take one more.
Do you mulch all the way out to the leaf line on the trees? Or just,
Yeah, that's the best advice. In
Okay.
fact, my beds are full, so that the surrounding soil is also going to retain moisture.
okay,
But yeah, that would be the least amount that you'd want.
okay.
Sure. Great. Well, thank you very much.